Hello, folks. This is Melinda Heinrichs, president of the Madison Public Schools Foundation. The foundation, which on May 17th, during our 16th annual Circle of Friends luncheon celebration, will culminate a year-long celebration of our 20th anniversary. During the course of our history, we have worked with the community to deliver over 32 million in resources to the Madison Metropolitan School District through signature programs such as Adopt a School, Teacher Support Network, Fiscal Agency Services, school endowments, and more recently, advocacy is a major area of program delivery for us. We have a new statewide approach called Act Now to Invest. We function as a community in the school district's referenda hub. Most recently, the successful 2020 Vote Yes to Invest Future Ready referenda campaign. And of course, as always, we have a program in our own backyard. Each spring, we have elections for our Board of Education. And last year, we launched what we call our candidate conversations, an opportunity to meet people who are standing for election to the Board of Education, and a chance to maybe get to know audience members a little more on a personal, informal level. Joining me is my co-host, Mo Cheeks. Mo was a past board member of the school's Madison Public Schools Foundation. He's the current president of our 501c4 Schools Make Madison Advocates and continues to serve on our advocacy committee. And joining us today is David Blaska, who is running, of course, for the Board of Education. And if David and Mo have no initial comments to make, we will jump right into our questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Melinda, and thanks for joining us today, David. As folks are seeking to get to better know candidates, start with a few questions that will orient them to you. Where did you grow up, David?
Well, I grew up on a farm just east of Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, here in Dane County. Born in Madison, but grew up all 18 years on that farm. And my father we had 6 kids. So my father, he was like the 4th or 5th generation himself of farmers there. He had one commandment for us kids, and that was no work, no eat. And we not only could see him out the window working, but we were working alongside him with the cows, the pigs, the chickens, and especially in the fields and the crops. So we had a real full life, a lot of hired men and whatnot, people come through and help us and work. So it was a great environment that I kind of feel sorry that not more kids have that kind of experience growing up.
What was your public school experience like?
Well, I survived it. It was fine. I went to Catholic school for my first 8 grades. Actually, I started out 1st and 2nd grade in a one-room country school, Oak Lawn Country School. And I think one year we only had 17 kids in the entire school. And I have a photograph of my father and one of his brothers and a sister from 1929, I think it would be, in that same school. Very little change. And then outside the school, and it's got to be 1895, my grandfather, when the school was newly built. So then the next 6 years were at Sacred Hearts. High school was at Sun Prairie Senior High School, and it was the era when it was in the early 60s, and Kennedy was killed in that freshman year, and that was kind of seared into your memory. So I pretty much enjoyed my high school years, not as much as my college years.
How does that experience with public education inform and guide how you'd like to contribute to the Board of Education?
Well, I think all my life experiences. We had a teacher. His nickname was Bones Brown. He was later a principal. Died young, unfortunately, but he taught freshmen. I was in the college track, despite my farm background. he taught ancient medieval history. And the very first day, one of the kids, the window steamed up, so he kind of wrote or made a heart or something on the window with his finger, and Mr. Brown said, out you go. And that set a tone for the rest of the semester. So you learned pretty much that some teachers just didn't put up with any guff. On the other hand, we had, it wasn't in rows that we sat. It was more college oriented. We were kind of in a semicircle, and there was a lot of give and take. So I had some great teachers in school, and I continue to believe that we have great teachers in Madison. One of the things I keep talking about is those teachers that are there. There's nothing that they prize more than helping somebody who needs help. I always say teachers can teach, but they can't learn for the student. And if the students are challenged and if expectations are high, I think they will succeed.
So you have, well, I won't preface this. What would you like the community to know about you, personally or professionally?
Well, Mo, you can preface it. That's fine. I mean, if you want to, zing me a little bit, that's fine. I don't mind that.
I was simply going to say you've cultivated a reputation. People,
Yes.
Some folks know you through your blog and whatever else.
Right. Yeah.
But plenty of people probably have never heard of you or your blog.
Yeah. And I feel sorry for those people, Mo. I really do. My blog is davidblaska.com. myname.com. You ought to go there. I am a conservative. Mo, 3 years ago, I was on the ballot. I ran against Ali Muldrow. Neither one of us was an incumbent. And we had one debate before the 100 Black men of Madison at Wright Middle School. And I stood up and I said, microphone, I said, I am diversity. And I went behind each of the other, there were three seats open, so there were 6 candidates there. I went behind each one, I said, liberal, progressive, clean care, I'm not sure what he is, progressive, conservative. I said, I am diversity. Out of a 7-member board, you ought to have at least one, I think, mainstream conservative, judging by the votes in Madison, 30% vote Republican. I am something of an apostate in regards to, I don't believe the election was stolen. My opponent said that I'm a Trump supporter, not after January 6th, that's for sure. So I guess I'd like people to know that I am an independent thinker, and I would bring that kind of diversity of thought to the school board. I would say, wait a minute. I don't know if this is working. I've asked the question, Mo and Melinda, restorative, and now I'm getting into policy here a little bit, so I'll back off a little bit, but is restorative justice working? We've been doing it for 7 years. Let's see the data. Is it working? I don't think it is. That's what I'd like people to know, is that I'm an independent thinker.
I appreciate that, David.
Yeah. Thank you for those answers. So to the degree we have a little more hard-hitting question, we have a couple we wanted to share with each candidate. So I'm sure you are aware that the state has a surplus that's been in the news a lot recently. And we are at the end of decades of reduced investment in Wisconsin K-12. And this foundation, as I mentioned, is very active in a statewide outreach, asking business leaders from around the state to champion greater investment in Wisconsin K-12. So we just wanted to hear your thoughts about, working on that kind of advocacy and how that surplus should be used. And this is a big opportunity to invest in our kids and our economy, for that matter. Right.
Well, I think tagging along with what I just said in my previous answer, I don't tailor my answers to the audience. So I'm gonna say right here and now that Wisconsin spending per pupil has increased statewide, an average of $12,201 in the 2015-16 school year to $13,748 in 2019-20. So that's a 12.7% increase in 4 years. I think that's pretty good. We here in Madison, the property tax increased on an average single family home by 8.9%. That's pretty hefty. So I disagree with your premise that we're not investing in education. Maybe you're saying we're not investing enough. I understand that too. I will say though also that in the time that the spending has increased, results have gone down, and statewide, well, I'll just say in Madison's, and spending increased, by the way, by the same percentage as it was statewide, 12.8%. But proficiency in math and reading went down from 35% to 17% proficient in math, from 35% also for reading down to 20%. I say that Abraham Lincoln learned his lessons writing on the back of a shovel. I don't mean to impoverish the schools at all. I do think, though, that we can shovel money at the schools, but if they don't demand accountability, that money will not show results.
Well, thank you for your candid answer. And I now, Mo, you're up for the next question.
So there seems to be a national conversation being started at this time around something called parents' rights as they relate to school. What are your thoughts on this national conversation?
I'm taking part in that conversation. I think we all ought to. I think that the voters of Virginia, for instance, are not stupid, and they don't like being told that they should shut up about their schools. I'll say this very frankly, and I said this in other debates. We have the most opaque, not transparent, opaque school district I've ever seen here in Madison. Try to get an answer out of them. In fact, I've asked, what are your statistics for restorative justice? Just how long does it last? Is it a day, a week, a month? How many, what are they supposed to read? What does it look like? And what are the results? What are the reoffenders, so to speak? And the education reporter for the Wisconsin State Journal said, words to the effect of, you better be patient. If you ever get an answer, you'll be lucky. So that's a problem, I think, in our schools. They're not, and I also believe that they quit taking parental surveys. I've looked at the last, and that's going back, I think, to 2017, they were eviscerating. The problem is, I've been told, and I have no reason to doubt that in Madison, only 15% of the voters in this spring election will be parents of students. So we have a lot of people, I think, virtue signaling and whatnot that don't have real skin in the game. Well, this is a democracy and they get to vote, but I'm actually trying to save the public schools. In lieu of that, I can give you statistics on people who are voting with their feet. Enrollment in our Madison public schools is going down. Enrollment in private schools are going up, and also in open enrollment program. In 2021, we had 897 students leave for openings in other public schools, which cost the school district here in Madison $7.1 million. That's more than a canary in the coal mine.
Any follow-up there, Mo, or we'll go from somewhat heavier questions to a lightning round of a little sillier, but kind of fun. What's your favorite TV show?
I love these questions. I really do. I think that's genius to have this. I'm glad you gave this ahead of time. I'm down to the Progressive insurance commercials where you got that life coach preventing adults from becoming their parents, and they had a movie, and one of them applauds, and the life coach says, "Now nobody who made this movie is in the theater today." So it was, and then he'll turn to the camera and say, "It's not pretty." And the other one is the Spectrum commercials with the monsters like the Mummy and the Dracula saying, poor service and da is evil. When you can't get your show, it's evil. And these guys got horns coming out of them. And so I like those two commercials. I will stop what I'm doing and listen to them. I hope they make more of them.
Okay. What book would you recommend for viewers?
Well, it's interesting. I'm in a book club with some pretty interesting people who at one point held many offices in Dane County, but we're all a little bit older now. They're all, by the way, they're all Democrats except for me. But we were reading The Power of Geography by Tim Marshall, and it has a companion book, The Prisoners of Geography. Well, while we were reading those books, up comes Ukraine. And they talked about that in the book where, you've got a plane there, not real identifiable boundaries, the history, it's history and geography. And you read those books and it's almost like, this was going to happen. And it talks about, China and the United States, how we've got friends to the north, Canada and two oceans. We're just so lucky to be Americans. And still, I think that shining city on a hill that Ronald Reagan talked about. Ronald Reagan, by the way, Tommy Thompson, Ronald Reagan, my brother Mike Blaska, who was chairman of the county board when I first went on, are I think are three of my political heroes. Believe it or not, I worked for Tommy, and I was in his office, and I still admire the man as being so public spirited and really caring about Wisconsin and the people of.
I was just looking at, do you ever listen in to the Madison Chamber Lunch Up programs on Thursdays, David?
I'm not aware of them.
I can't remember his name, unfortunately, but that was the topic of the Lunch Up last week, was a gentleman who is an expert on Russian history and Soviet Union and Putin. And it was just fascinating to hear the history and hear the perspectives. And of course, unfortunate that we are even asking these questions or listening to these programs, because it's frightening. All right, let's see, back to the questions. What's your favorite Madtown hangout?
Well, it was Collectivo Coffee Shop on Monroe Street. There's just a vibe there on Monroe Street. It's a little bit of a drive. I live on the southwest side. But also just running across people that come by and talk to me, especially when I was running for school board 3 years ago. I haven't been back in the last 2 years due to COVID, and they've kind of, I don't even know if they're opening up again. There's still people walking around outside and driving the cars with face masks on, and that, to be quite honest, I do not understand.
Well, I think they're open. I go past there frequently, so.
Yeah, and so I take the Sunday paper. I take the Sunday paper there when I got, delivered New York Times, actually. I guess that's the other thing, Mo and Melinda. I subscribe online to The Nation. Frankly, it's a communist paper, magazine, but I'll watch MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, until I can't take it anymore. But I like to find out what people are thinking, so I can sharpen my blade against their, and so I will question, I was accused not accused, but a newspaper article in the State Journal said that David Blaska is repeating Republican talking points. I make up my own talking points, and where they coincide, they coincide. But that's, again, if you want to know anything about me, it's that I'm an independent thinker.
Okay. Did you get a pandemic pet?
No, I have one though. It's Enzo the baker, named after a character in Godfather movie where Enzo the baker, he comes up to visit Don Corleone in the hospital, and Michael says, "Who are you? What do you want?" "I am Enzo the baker." And it's a Himalayan cat. It's a fur ball. I bought a professional clipper thing there, and 3 times in now, and there's still more hair to get. It's unbelievable. This thing grows hair like you wouldn't believe. But he's cute. He's going to be flat face, white mane, chocolate feet and tail. So he's a funny little guy.
Yeah. Well, can't imagine a household without pets of one shape or another. So.
Right.
Any new pandemic quirks, habits, or, it's changed all of us in some fashion? Any learnings or anything?
No, I don't. I just wonder though, for instance, you guys should know that 3 years ago, I decided to run for school board then. When I asked my wife if she'd go to the school board meeting with me, she said, "Are you kidding? Not after the last time." We both got harassed physically and verbally. I wonder now if we'll ever have a governmental meeting again locally here in person. It got to the point where the school board would move around the city into elementary schools to avoid the Freedom Incorporated, Freedom Inc. mob that would disrupt the meetings. I went to Ismail Azan and we made a complaint, and it was never taken up. I guess it's legal to break up a school board meeting. So that's how I decided to run 3 years ago. And I was on the ballot. I spent $20,000 and I got 30.1% of the vote. So I figured this time I'm going to cut my losses a little bit. But I was hoping that someone else would run, and they didn't. So I said, well, they should have at least one place to have a protest vote. So that's why I'm a registered write-in for seat 4.
Got it. And Mo, you'll wrap us up here.
Before our last question, David, is there anything else that you'd like to share? Obviously, you've waxed poetic already.
Well, at least I'm not. Yeah. No, I think not. I'm trying to keep within the spirit of this. I just think that, I've called Madison East High School Fight Club East. It's a little rough, but when we've getting rid of the school police officers was only the capstone of I think a decade-long war against school discipline. And who's hurt the most, I do believe, are disadvantaged kids, particularly those of color. But I don't see, we always say, well, are Black kids learning? I want to know, are disadvantaged kids learning? Kids who've not been read to in the home. We can teach professors' kids pretty good, but kids who have never been read to in the home, that is the struggle that we can empty the jails if we get to kids early enough in school. And we're not doing that. The home is not providing guardrails, and now we've decided neither will the schools. That's why I think people are choosing school choice, private schools, and whatnot. And I'm trying to reverse that.
Say more about why. Why are you trying to reverse that?
Well, because we're shortchanging kids. I'm following some of these cases first. We've got 13, 14, 15-year-old kids stealing cars and wrecking them. And one of my little snide jokes is that if nothing else, we should teach restorative driver's ed. We're not helping kids by who need those guardrails. I mentioned Bones Brown. Setting a tone and backing up the teachers. They're afraid to intervene. They're afraid because they might do the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong person. And that's the end of their academic career. I witnessed Mr. Robb at Whitehorse Middle School. He actually was a co-founder of our behavior education plan program in Madison. And I went to the school board and I said, keep your powder dry. The police are investigating this incident. And he was ultimately cleared, but by that point, he'd been forced out of his job and resorted to disguising his appearance so he wouldn't be accosted on the street. And that's what we've done. And we're not helping anybody. That's a little serious, but this is serious stuff. And I don't know if I don't know who's going to reverse it. I really don't. Yeah. But I'm willing to try. If I got elected, I would be. Laura Simpkins says she wants police back in the schools, but I don't know if she can put up with the blowback that she's going to get. We had the school board president, Gloria Reyes, a former cop, so you'd think she'd be tough. But when they mau-maued her with bullhorns and F-bombed her front yard, and that's how we make policy in Madison schools, is by intimidation and harassment. So she caved. And so if a former police officer can cave, see, I don't have that problem. And I've been threatened. That's the reality that we're talking about. Okay, we're pretty light hit here, but we're in trouble here as a society, and we're not getting the good learning and education and upbringing that I got. I said that to my father when he gave me a shovel and wheelbarrow and said, after spring day like today, clean out the old red barn, which I said I was not aware that I had white privilege. Well, I got a good booing from that audience, and we did it live there. In a way, I was privileged because I had a father that made me work, that made me understand. Believe me, that shovel and that wheelbarrow said, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to study. But I think I was fortunate to have somebody who made heavy requirements.
We're right at the end here. 15 seconds, something that makes you hopeful about our schools. I mean, it's been a rough period, regardless of perspectives and how you feel about things.
Well, I'm hopeful that, I saw that question and I had some of these I prepared answers. I don't have a prepared answer for that. If Madison, the city voters can't elect Colleen Kerr, who were waiting with me 3 years ago. Now his school is going great guns, private school. He got that through Scott Walker and his school choice program. It's the only reason we have one city schools right now in Madison. So I'm very optimistic for all the Colleen Kerrs out there. For the public schools, I'm very pessimistic. I'm sorry.
Well, you're honest. We wouldn't expect any less. And thank you again for taking the time to be with us. Best wishes next week. And thank you for your willingness to put yourself out there in service of our community. So have a good day.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mo, we'll see you again in about a minute.
Thank you, David.
You bet, Mo.